So y'all gave me something today. I have to work on me. I have to work on me.
I came here and I talked to these brothers and they let me know what God was telling me, bro. They let me know what my father wanted me to do, bro.
That's right.
They explained to me that as a follower of God, bro, someone that believes in God, bro, our Father would not want us to smoke.
Shalom, shalom, family. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, all honors, and all glory to the Most High God, Yahweh. We do all things through His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Real name, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. It is your brother, Matathia Ban Banyamyan, out of that Masada. Shalom, family. How y'all doing today? Another reaction today, and this one is a little bit different, right? This one we're actually going to be doing something that I recommend to everybody who's trying to be scholarly. We are actually going to be reviewing a debate today. And oddly enough, we Israelites aren't necessarily in the conversation for the most part. However, this is a great way for especially newer brothers and sisters who have friends, family, or even, acquaintances, or get walked upon by someone who is, into Kemet, Egyptology, and things like that. We are going to be seeing that discussion. And yeah, we're going to give our critique on it. And yeah, I suggest that y'all watch what these other people are teaching, and as well as learn what your enemy is doing. Right? If you know the attack patterns, the MO of your enemy, then you know how to defeat them, right? You have to be able to know where they're going, so that way you can stop them and, give them that counter punch. You feel me? But let's go ahead and get started. And also make sure y'all like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment, make sure you share, right? Not just on Masada DFW, but also on Masada in general, man. All right, y'all hit those channels. But let's go ahead and jump right into it today, which you probably don't recognize this brother. This is on a YouTube channel called Titans TV, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a Kemetic channel. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. My first instance on following these brothers or finding these brothers is through this video, right? I haven't seen all of it. I think it was like a short, and then it got me interested in trying to find the actual conversation. So this is it. So this is going to be my own first time reaction to this, right? And I want to do that with y'all. All right. Granted, yes, this is a recorded reaction. Brother got stuff to do. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Y'all know when the lives start to get more frequent, we're gonna have a lot more fun. But I gotta give y'all something to look at, so we gonna grow and get this thing going together. All right. But the title of it is Vocab Malone takes on Hebrews, Muslims, and Kemet Live UK. So I don't know if there's going to be an Israelite that comes on this discussion. I haven't seen it yet. If there is, we probably might do this segment piece by piece. If he has to debate more than one person, we might do it that way, right? But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get this started. But first and foremost, fair use. All right, fair use. We are using this for criticism, to comment, to report on news, for edification purposes. That is what we're using this for. Fair use. All right, let's go ahead and get it popping.
Family tree, biggest apologies. Hopefully we are live right now. Again, apologies. The gremlins are in the studio trying to take us down. We're having a very good conversation. I think personally it's the Kemetic gods that have come in because they saw that Kalam was on the ropes, struggling to answer Vocab's question in terms of the Kemetic schools of thoughts, Kemetic cities. Which one should one follow? And it's a very good question. Which one should one follow? Personally, I'm not judgmental, so you can follow whatever you like. But how do you judge which is the right one, which is the wrong one? And I personally think we will have to wait a little bit till this nascent Kemetic community grows a bit older. And like Christianity, like Islam, where they've grown so strong, they've realized that there is creedal differences amongst one another. They split off, they create their own groups, they create their own creedal statements. And then at that moment in time, do I think it's only fair that we can actually start looking to see who is right and who is wrong? But yeah, that's my thought. That's my thought. Go ahead.
People come to us and their teeth are so bad that they all...
It's gross.
Well, I'm glad we're back. I would say that I don't know if that's going to happen because I don't see neo-Kemeticism really growing. It's too idiosyncratic. You have like internet influencers and they hold their own versions and they can't get along with each other. Jabari's the only person I know in this sort of neo-Kemetic who he's setting up other houses. Mm-hmm. In fact, the first location I'm aware of that they set up outside of New York is in Phoenix.
Yeah.
So when they first opened, they did a grand opening. I said, is it okay if I come observe? I'm not going to worship if that's happening. Yeah. And they let me. They were nice. They were friendly about it, which I appreciated. But I don't know who else is doing anything like that. So, man, I hate to say it this way, but what really is the future in the Kemetic religion as it stands now? Because most of authentic Egyptians are Muslims or Copts. Mm-hmm. But in America, you have this neo-Kemeticism, and it's in a couple other places like London, but annual gatherings, like what's happening? You know, is there scholars who are trying to write position papers for it? Leaders over, I just don't see anything like that. There's no, and people may say, we don't need that. At the end of the day, for anything in the world to be stable, it has to have institutions of some sort.
Yeah.
Institutions don't just mean buildings. They mean some kind of standards that are created, some kind of intellectual, moral, ethical leadership. And where is that forthcoming? I mean, we saw Poe Light. My sense of what he did is he sort of used it as a ladder to get on the roof, and then he got on the roof and then kicked down the ladder. Yes. So that's not going to help anybody as far as that goes.
Wrong way. That's what I want. Vocab told her funny.
So who, what? I don't know. Because you said in the future, as we go on, and I was thinking, like other religions, Kemet's really old already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even ancient Kemet, I don't know how creedal based it was. It seemed to be more ritualistic based from what I could discern. Mm-hmm. So what is the future? I'm genuinely, what do you think? I don't know.
I think you're right. I personally don't see a future for the Kemetic movement. Let's call it the Kemetic movement. I don't see a future for it. The best scholars who we have is Browder, Theophile Benga, Mwala Karenga. But they're American, so I don't see their works being pushed over here in the UK. I don't see they have any institutions over here in the UK, any schools over here in the UK where you could learn something, to be honest with you. Because I never came up, when I got introduced to Kemet, it was never via the Afro-American community version of Kemeticism.
Interesting.
It's like, I never got it from that. I was just interested as a child, growing up, we're in school, we're learning, Egyptian, Greek, Roman, stuff, and so forth and so forth. I'm like, oh, cool, let me actually dig more into the ancient Egyptians. That's where I came up. I came up on the learning it via university level scholarship and so forth, and learning the language via that means and other little things. So I never came up from that side of things. And when I came over and I'm like, oh, there's actually a community that has the same interests as me. But them, I just don't see. I don't know. I don't see it taking off here in the UK, full stop. And I always say I would never tell anybody or try to preach Kemeticism or get anybody to convert to Kemeticism, because you have to be a special individual like myself. Yeah. And that specialness is not good. It's not good, by the way. Yeah, don't get me twisted. That specialness is not good. It takes a special type of individual that says, 700 characters, i.e., characters, let's say alphabets, basically. You have to memorize that. And then you have to be able to read that. And then it's a dead language. It's died over 1,000 years ago. It's dead. It takes a special type of individual to actually want to learn that information and actually, gain wisdom from that type of information. So I would never push that to anybody. And I think it's too much of a difficult ask for anybody to say.
Here's my thing when it comes to, people who follow the ways of Kemetology and stuff like that. Like, because, on our side of things, yes, we teach who the Israelites are, and essentially to come back to customs that belonged to the Israelites, right? So my question that I typically want to ask people who follow the ways of Kemet, Egyptology, and things like that. First question, are you an Egyptian? Follow-up, if you are not an Egyptian, then why are you following the ways of Kemetology? You're not of the people of Kim. You're not a Mizraim. Not what is called an Egyptian. You're not one of those fake Egyptians today. So why are you following after the ways of Egypt if you yourself are not an Egyptian? Well, see, the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at are... Cool. Are you an Egyptian? Are you of the people of Kim? Are you a Kemite? No. Then why are you following after the ways of the ancient Egyptians and Cometians and not after the ways of your people? Who are your people? What were their customs? They don't want to deal with it. Our people have a habit of following after something similar versus what actually belongs to us. And that is a big issue.
I will leave my 5 pillars in Islam to convert to Kemeticism. I just don't see it.
It's interesting you bring up Islam in regards to Kemeticism. Do you think that Kemeticism can probably properly be understood as a polytheistic religion?
I think some people view it as a polytheistic religion. In terms of theology, I think it's a panentheistic religion.
So, do you think that...
So, polytheistic, more than one God. Pantheistic, more than one God in a pantheon? Pantheism is a philosophical religious belief that reality, the universe, and nature are identical to divinity or a supreme entity. It is a belief that God and the universe are one and the same, with no dividing line between the two. Pantheists view God as immanent and impersonal. Pantheism is not a specific religion, but a type of religious belief similar to the terms like monotheism and polytheism. Pantheism is found in many nature religions and New Age religion. Okay. Polytheistic, but just for the edification. Relating or characterizing by belief or worship of more than one God. Basically a Trinitarian. Alright, I'll give you that. So...
it properly practiced engages in idolatry?
It depends on what you mean by idolatry. In terms of maybe Christian version of idolatry, quite possibly.
Or Islamic?
Or Islamic, quite possibly. But then at the same time, maybe not. And why do I say maybe not?
Idolatry is the worst... Hold on. Okay. Idolatry refers to the worship of a physical object as God, or the excessive devotion or something other than God. And So you pick an object and you worship it because you believe it's God. That would be an idol. Fair play.
Because within side of Christianity, you have statues up. It doesn't mean that those statues are idols because they're there, they're present.
No. You had it because it's true. Christians have all these idols. You have the Catholics, that they have all the statues of all the quote-unquote saints and whatnot. You know, almost any time you walk to a church, what's there? A cross. It's an idol, right? So, okay, I guess, bro.
So what makes an idol an idol? For example, the black stone in the Kaaba is something that people pray towards, touch, believe that it will forgive their sins, etc. But Muslims would say, no, we're not idol worshippers. This isn't an idol. So it all depends on your definition of what an idol is, I would say.
The definition refers to the worship of a physical object as God. We humans have this innate ability to try to say, well, what does it mean to you? Well, but what do you mean by that? What does the actual word and or phrase mean when being used? It is idolatry. There is an object that you have that you go towards because that is your God, and you worship that idol. That is idolatry. Moving on.
From a most probably a biblical standpoint, they will say any graven images basically is an idol. And if that's the standards of what an idol is, I would say, yeah, definitely. Kemet is an idol religion because everything is to do with carved pictures, things that you see inside of nature.
Well, in ancient Kemet, there was priests of different gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would seem to make it polytheistic by definition, regardless if they had statues or not. If you have a priest for this god, priest class for this god, do you see what I'm saying?
Because I don't,
Vocab right on there.
Because I don't see it like that. It's like saying, there is, for example, the Holy Spirit, the Word of God, and the Father. And all three, according to Trinity, they're all one God, all different gods, but they're all one. It's the same thing in Kemet. They may be individual.
That would actually that would be more in line with pantheism, if I'm not mistaken. Not necessarily, well, I guess it might tie into idolatry, but the Trinity is more along the lines of polytheism or pantheism. I will say that is a good comparison in regards to this. If you see this, brother, the Trinity is not in the Bible, gang.
Visualized, but they're all one God.
If that's the case, how do they marry each other and kill each other and have sex with each other?
Again, that's a different culture. A different culture has a different understanding of things. Whereas for us over here in the West, we might see it as, it's different. But then one will say, okay, how does a father have a child by himself to have a son? And they'll say that has to be polytheistic. So it all depends on the cultural understanding, I would say.
Like you've seen this is not a good facsimile, but where you got the falcon up there, and she's doing something like making a phallus for her dead.
I dropped my sugar from 198 down to 94 and left.
He said she's making a phallus. Go do your research and find out what a phallus is.
Brown salt and just
Half brother, husband.
Yep.
And then they're having some kind of sexual relation. So it's like necrophilia, but also bestiality, but also incest. You know what I mean? But then what I'm saying by that is if they're all one, how do you have that situation happen? Because I don't see how they're all one if they're doing that with each other. And especially because ancient Kemet, some of the gods are described to have semen.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of them put it in the lettuce at a gathering, which is kind of odd. Another one seemed to swallow his own semen and spit it out to create things. But he's creating gods in the process, so they don't seem like they're all one. In fact, it seems like they're fighting each other, marrying each other, having sex with each other. But you're saying they're one. But would they say they're one?
I would say if you go into ancient Egyptian literature,
funny.
they will tell you that all three gods are one, or all gods are one. That's literally. I wish I had books up right now to kind of show
That's
you Kemetic
pantheism
literature,
then.
but they literally have it all as one god. Let's just say, for example, right? You have Ra. Let's just say he is the number one deity, the god, right? And then he gives birth to Shu and Tefnut, and then Shu and Tefnut give birth to Gebenut, and then Gebenut give birth to Osiris, and so forth and so forth. But all of those gods are just, how can I put it? Manifestation of that one deity,
What's the one deity?
Ra.
So would you say everything is Ra?
No. That wouldn't make any sense. Everything isn't Ra.
Well, like on Hinduism, they would have everything is.
No. So, how can I put it? It from them, it would be the essence. Let's say the essence, the source, is God.
Ra.
In order for God, whereas in Christianity, it's ex nihilo, created
Yeah.
from nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas from Kemetic philosophy, it's like everything is created out of the deity, rather than it being created out of nothing.
So would
So
you?
therefore, everything goes back to that one deity,
Who is Ra?
who is Ra.
So is Ra.
So basically, Kemetic gods have no power. Bet. Why? Because the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that is the only true living God with power. Let's keep going.
Ra eternally existed.
Ra has always been in existence in some form, but he is only Ra once he starts to create.
What's he
So-
before that?
So you see how him trying to explain the deities and how they work within Kemetology, Egyptology. You see how it's circular. Like his line of logic is not sound. He's trying to describe something that just don't make sense. Like these heathen religions that our people wrap themselves in and get lost in. There's no, how can I say it? I want to say there's so much room open for people to put their own spin on things, their own take on things in regards to that specific subject matter. That's what our people like, because our people want to be right within their own selves. And that is the downfall in which they have. They just want to be right. They want to have philosophical conversations and discussions, so that way they can say, well, this is right. Like, no. This is what happens when you're trying to, appeal some BS from a whole nother nation that you not a part of and bring people in. You just make it sound good, but it don't sound right logically.
He was a seed of possibilities and potentiality. And until he rises, that's when he becomes Ra.
So he went from a seed to Ra when he started creating.
So let's do it from the mythology. The mythology states that there is the eternal waters of Nun. Okay? And then there is a seed or circuit in it, which is Ra. But he's not Ra yet, because he hasn't created, he hasn't manifested. Once he steps up above the waters and starts manifesting, then he is Ra.
So the eternal waters of Noon, what are they?
Eternal waters of Nun would be existence, the essence, the source, just complete energy. Let's just use the energy as a term.
So Noon,
Mm-hmm.
who's that?
Nun is, as I said, existence.
So not an individual.
No.
So why isn't Noon God then? Why is Ra? If Ra is,
Because the definition of God in that term would be the one who causes things to come into existence, the first cause.
so he's a creator, but he may not necessarily be God.
So it depends on what you mean by God.
Why wouldn't Noon be God if Noon exists prior to Ra?
Because Nun, there is nothing, there is no movement until Ra moves.
Then how do you get the seed?
Ra is the seed. he's the circle in the water.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie, brother. I'm not finna lie. Vocab on your ass right now. Hey, Vocab, he's asking really good questions. Like, who is Nun, right? Nun, like he just said, there's like which is it? Like, who came first? Oh, Nun came first. Cool. So why is that not a god? When there's like Vocab asking some good questions. I'll say that.
But did Noon make the seed be in the water?
That part,
The
and
seed.
yeah.
The seed is part of the water.
So Ra's part of Noon.
Now we doubling back. Ra is the seed, seeds himself. Okay, so then how did the seed get in the water? Like where did the seed come from?
Noon.
So Ra is part of Nun until he comes and becomes something.
But
That's-
So Ra is a part of Nun until he becomes something. So he's a part of Nun, and then when he becomes something, he's not a part of Nun no more. And he's the first, like, what?
then he is Ra.
So, because that's a problem where you have, at least to me, where you have Ra as the god in the system, but he seems contingent. So in philosophy, they talk about contingent beings. Contingent being is a fancy way to say a dependent being. So I'm clearly dependent because there was a time when I didn't exist. I would be dependent on my parents' activity, grandma, go back, every person in this room to exist. And since you're contingent, you're dependent upon other factors. The factors you're dependent upon can't be dependent upon you because they're prior to you. So we're all contingent beings. Ra sounds like a contingent being regarding Noon, but a contingent being by definition doesn't seem to be able to match characteristics of God because they're not properly eternal and they're changing. So they're mutable, they're not immutable. So you have a shifting God. But if God is going to be the ground and foundation of all reality, if he himself is contingent and mutable, how's he the foundation for all reality?
So I would say first that because we're using God, I think you may have come with a Christian understanding of God. But
No. He's using the word God as, deity. Like the same way that you would say deity. You would call Ra God, you would call Ra a deity. You would call Ma'at a god or a deity. Like you would call the cow thing that Egyptians worship a god or a deity. Right? That is just a term stating which on something that is supposed to be at least metaphysical for the most part. Right? Like come on. Like I think he's wrong in that question. Right? Because and I don't like agreeing with Vocab, but I do believe that Vocab is not using the term God in a Christian mindset or in a sense. He's simply asking the question, how is Ra, the first God, but it was a part of this thing called Nun, and it was a part of Nun up until it left. Why is Nun not considered a God? Right? How is Ra, who was a dependent upon Nun, and then like Vocab's asking really good questions. Like, how is this a god? And this dude's argument or response, I'm sorry, brother, you're not doing good.
versus their understanding of God, it's perfectly fine that it could be.
Because he's
contingent
going
on
after the
something else.
understanding
Because
of
for
the
them,
word
everything
God.
belongs within inside of a a constellation. Nothing is by itself. There is always a constellation of other deities together.
This brilliant device keeps your home cool in summer, even during heat waves and power
I don't
outages.
care.
It's smaller than a lunchbox.
That makes any sense?
Yeah.
There is always something else.
So I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
but what I would see that as is a recognition that the system is inherently illogical.
Okay, let me hear that.
So if you're saying you're using it a certain way, but they basically have a system at root that seems to violate all kinds of laws, the law of identity, the law of non-contradiction. So you have this being who he himself is contingent, but yet he's a foundation for other things. but it doesn't. There's problems there. So to me, it seems like illogical at the root, because how do you explain reality with a being that's contingent and changes?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So, God, does he exist?
Yes.
Cool. Did existence come first or did God come first?
God come first.
God by definition is self-existent, and the beautiful thing about that is he reveals that when he gives his covenant name. The best example most people know of is in Exodus 3, when he says, go into Kemet. Yahweh tells Moses, go into Kemet. He says, who am I going to say sent me? He's asking for the divine covenant name. He understands he's talking to God, the creator. And he says a form of what we now use as Yahweh, where he says, I am that I am. And so, by
No, and no. Alright, here we go. No. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 3. We're going to start at verse 1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him in the flame of fire out of the midst of a bush, and looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight. So it was an angel that did this thing, right? So let's go down to verse, is it at 15? Boom. Verse 15. And God said, now, this word God, Elohim, obviously not the tetragrammaton. Ruler, judges, divine ones, angels, gods. God is godlike, works the special possessions of God. So by context, who was it? An angel that appeared unto Moses. So, when we know this, we know that this is talking about an angel, right? Or a power, a governing force, right? God, moreover, and God said unto Moses, thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Yahweh, God or power of your fathers, the power or God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob have sent me unto you. Oh, Salakia, nope, I skipped the part. Verse 14, Salakia. And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya. I am that I am. Right? So, and he said, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am Ahaya Ashar, have sent me unto you. The angel. That's the name. Ahaya Ashar Ahaya. Ahaya is right here. So he said, Ahaya sent me unto you. And God said moreover unto Moses, and the Elohim, the angel said moreover to Moses, thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Yahweh, Elohim, Jehovah, Yahweh. This is the tetragrammaton, right? Yahweh, Elohim, power, God. Yahweh, power. That's the name. And he said, moreover, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, Yahweh, power of your fathers, the power of Abraham, or judge of Abraham, the ruler of Abraham, Yahweh, ruler of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob have sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. So the angel's name is Ahaya. Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya. Ahaya have sent me unto you. Why? Because the angel is the one talking to Moses. That angel's name is Ahiah. And then he said, but moreover, you're going to speak to the children of Israel and you're going to say, Yahweh has sent me unto you. Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, have sent me unto you. That's simple. I don't know why Christians and people like that just don't understand that. Like, terrible.
The very name of the God of the Bible is self-existence. There's really no God like that I'm aware of in any of these pagan, polytheistic, idolatrous. I understand those are invectives, words that might be understood to be an insult, but I'm just trying to describe them as I understand them, not necessarily insult practitioners or anything. They don't seem to have that type of God, so you lack a true source. So it's interesting because you have in these other systems God of. So God of the harvest, God of love, God of the moon, God of the sun. It's almost like they're delegated out for these little spheres that they have. And you may have one who's more powerful. The sun god's pretty powerful, but he's not all powerful. Yet when you get to the scriptures, you see immediately he says, I am that I am. I be, I is. His very nature is self-existence. So he doesn't do what's, and this is why I mentioned the law of non-contradiction. Something that isn't there can't create. So the self can't create the self, but you have self-created gods in these systems. Like there's one god, I think this might be in Assyrian literature, who sneezed and created himself. But how is that? There's no I to make the I.
It's illogical.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So you have some real radical problems with this sort of A&E cosmogony, especially the idea of the birth of gods. But when you turn to the Hebrew scriptures, you don't see anything like that. You have this God who says, I am that I am. That's the essence of who I am. So it's interesting. His essence is not over some sphere of nature. It's that he always exists. The technical name.
It's Yahweh. He exists. Like that's literally with existence. He exists. He is. That is what the name Yahweh means. Not Ahiah, Ashar, Ahiah. It's Yahweh.
For that, what theologians use, it's a term called aseity, A-S-E-I-T-Y. If you say the aseity of God, you're essentially just saying the eternality or the self-existence of God. Mm-hmm. And
is chasing after a better electricity provider getting you nowhere? Because providers' broken promises.
It's interesting because it doesn't seem like the natural world thought of that, because there's nothing in the natural world that's like that. Meaning, it seems it's based upon the idea of revelation. God reveals himself to his creatures. Here's how I am. But we couldn't make that up. If you notice, the stories of the gods are just supercharged superhumans. Mm-hmm. They birth, they love, they die, they come back, they get tricked, they get deceived. But when you come to the Hebrew scriptures, it's a God that no one could conceive of because he's eternal, always existed, not made in any way. And it's like, oh, that's different than anything else that exists. It seems like it's based upon revelation, not human reason based upon experience about what they already see in the natural world.
I don't even want to push, though. I don't want to push because it's not, as a host, it's not
Salt and Pepper said, push it good.
It's not, I just feel as though it's not my role to push. But I think that the things that you've said, you've made mention of certain things. And I'm like, but that actually is part of the Hebrew plus the biblical scriptures.
What is?
You're saying about, giving birth, certain emotions. Like, God is very much so emotional. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Facts. Facts. Make sure y'all go on the page and you check out that class that I did about the Most High having emotions. He does. He has feelings, and that's where we get them from. We get them from the Most High. He's not wrong in that. The Most High does have feelings and emotions. That is a thing.
Within inside of the scriptures, he's very much emotional. God angers. God has love. God has jealousy,
wrath.
All these things here. God has begotten a son.
Yes,
so it's like the things that you made mention of, like these other pagan religions. It's also within inside of the Bible, and I'm not saying that makes the Bible false or wrong. I'm just saying it's there as well.
Well, the idea of
I like the attempt at what he was saying. and I think Vocab might touch on this, but what you don't see is, the angels, doing the things that these other nations' gods have done, right? Like, for example, if I'm not mistaken, in Greek mythology, Zeus is known to commit adultery with other people's wives just because he can. Like, and then of course you got, what Vocab was talking about, these Egyptian gods that are, having sex with one another, people and things like that, fighting and whatnot. You don't see that of the angels. You don't see that of the Most High. You don't see these things. So I get the attempt, but you was reaching, brother. You was reaching. You was definitely reaching with that.
Emotions is sort of a different thing. I didn't necessarily bring that up, but so there's a debate about what's sometimes called the impassibility of God. Does God have emotions properly understood? Because what I would contend is there's sort of an anthropomorphizing so we can understand who God is, but not that he himself is anthropomorphic. So he'll be described as, for example, the Hebrew scriptures paint a God who's invisible, but yet it'll say when he's angry in the Hebrew, it'll say his nostrils flare up. What is that explaining? It's a poetic way to say he's angry at. Now, why is he angry at? Fill in the blank of what he's angry at. Because this thing that he's angry at violates his character. Well, why does that matter? Because his character is flawless and perfect. So him reacting to this is not a change in him. It's the response of what a holy God would always do in regards to this. For example, murdering your brother, Cain and Abel. He's always angry at that type of action. So God himself, though, is the same. Scripture even says he's the same yesterday, today, forever. But his response is based upon what's happening, but it's based upon an unchangeable character. And the idea of birth, Jesus is not coming into existence as far as his actual existence at Bethlehem. That's not the idea. The idea is he's eternally existed prior to his birth. And he even says things, now we could debate about if that's true. Jesus himself said things like before Abraham was, and then he uses the Greek ego eimi, which is I am, John 8:58. And you see Matthew pointing to prophecies in Isaiah that indicate he was already present. And Jesus says something very strange. He says, I was sent by the Father. And he even says, I have come down from heaven. So these types of now people may say, oh, he's just quoting Bible. But it's important to at least understand the Christology of Jesus himself, so to speak. So he's not now just existing in the sense he didn't have a prior existence, because John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. So the idea there is face-to-face in the Greek. When you see it's theos. So he always was there. But you're saying...
No. In the beginning of this recording started 52 minutes ago. Which means that this recording has a beginning. My beginning was about 33 years ago. Vocab's beginning was, maybe 40 years ago? In the beginning denotes a starting point. As you mentioned earlier, Vocab, the Most High is existence. Which means he doesn't have a starting point. If Christ has a starting point, that means there is a point in which had to happen for him to start to exist. A word is something that is spoken, like the words that are coming out of my mouth. The Most High spoke Yahushua into existence. That's why he's the only begotten of the Most High. What does it mean to be got? To be born of, to be created of, to come from. It's not that difficult. Go on though.
Saying
pop off,
he's
queen.
like the Egyptian gods or something like that?
I'm not saying that Jesus is like the Egyptian gods. So I'm never going to say that. I'm saying that what you made mention of in your statement earlier on about emotions, about giving birth and so forth, you were saying that was about the pagan deities, but I'm saying All those things exist within inside of the Bible as well. And I don't know. I think that Jesus did come into existence. Anytime that something takes place on this plane, that is a point of you've entered into time and space now.
That's true. But that's the incarnation. What you just
I would
said
say
there.
definitely
Yes.
to you the logos, and I like to separate Jesus from the logos because I don't think that the two are the same things.
No.
The
Smart
logos
boy.
is definitely pre-existing. The logos definitely is in heaven and so forth. But the moment that it comes into earth, that is a new creation. That's something new that's taken place. I.e., the physical human being Jesus. That's something new. The logos that resides within inside of him, or is him, or merge. I don't know. Whatever you want to say. Yeah, that's pre-existence. But the moment that it comes into being, that's something definitely new.
Well, you're saying you separate the Logos from Jesus, but later on, after those verses we mentioned, verse 14, and the Word became flesh, dwelt among us, saw his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father. So it's the
You said
it's
it
the same.
became flesh. That means that is something new. That wasn't
Took on human nature.
Yes, that's something completely new. So I would separate. That's what I'm saying. I'll separate Jesus from the logos. The logos is pre-existing, and then when he becomes flesh, that is a new form of creation that's taken place.
Texas locals get a brand new mini split system for as low as $39 a month and no money down.
But this is showing you that Jesus is the Logos, not that it's separate. But you're saying it is separate?
It has to be separate because you have two natures. You have
Hebrews 2, and I'm going to start at verse 16. For verily he took not on him the nature of angels. The nature of angels. He didn't take on the nature of angels. Now, wouldn't he be the same as the Most High? Because the angels, they come from the Most High, don't they? So, for verily he took on him not the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham. Wherefore in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God. Why not like unto himself? To make reconciliation for the sins of the people. For in that he himself suffered being tempted, he is able to secure them that are tempted. He is trying to, buddy over there talking about what he put on that flesh, that's a different, creation. Sure, that's him coming in the flesh, right? Through the production of a man and a woman, having a father and a mother, absolutely. Just like the rest of us Israelites, right? And so he came here to be an example for these people, for the reconciliation of the sins of the people, right? It's basically what this right here is basically a Trinitarian versus a Kemetologist. Crazy.
Well, that's
the
true.
divine nature, and then you have the human nature.
The divine took on a human
You say
nature, yeah.
The human nature can't possibly be, pre-existing, can it? It has to be something that is only part of this plane.
No, that's
material plane.
yeah. The last thing you said is what the incarnation teaches, which
And I don't think it's wrong.
Our Muslim friends would also disagree with that.
But Jesus is the new creation. He's the new Adam. So I don't think we have a disagreement, really.
No, but that's not saying that he came into existence at Bethlehem. Now, certainly the incarnation begins with the virgin conception, no doubt about that.
Nani?
He took on him the seed of Abraham. Wherefore in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren. You don't make me do it. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7, I'm going to start at verse 1. I myself also am a mortal man, like to all, and the offspring of him that was first made of the earth. In my mother's womb was fashioned to be flesh, in the time of 10 months, being compacted within blood of the seed of man. So your blood does come from your father, and the pleasure that came with sleep. And when I was born, I drew in the common air and fell upon the earth, which is of like nature, and the first voice which I uttered was crying as all others do. I was nursed in swaddling clothes, and that with cares. For there is no king that had any other beginning of birth. Sorry, but the only person who was wiser than Solomon was Yahushua Mashiach. That's another breakdown for another day. But everybody on earth goes to the same birth, right? The only person that we see who does not have that is Melchizedek, or Melchizedek, which that also is another day for another breakdown. But no, just no, okay.
But all that's being understood is the divine Logos takes on a human nature.
Mm-hmm.
So the incarnation is a new thing on time, in time and space, but you have the Logos, who is identified as Jesus in 114, always has existed. But all of that's still different than Egyptian mythology. You know, it's radically different. I mean,
100% is definitely different. And I'm against Kemetics when I hear them say and try to make the parallels with Jesus and other Kemetic deities. I'm like, you don't need to do that. Like leave the Hebrews, leave the Christians alone. They have their own thing. It's a new thing. They've created that. That can be found and backed up via the Bible. You don't need to go into Kemet of 2,000 years ago to find it. It's literally a Hebrew religion. You know, Christianity is birthed out of the Hebrew religion. It didn't need to come from Kemet, and I don't think it does.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you and Jabari could have a good conversation there.
Yeah, definitely. I disagree with him vehemently on that one. So, what I would like to do right now, family, are you enjoying the show thus far? I like it. To me, it's mentally stimulating for myself. As I said, the good brother had me on the ropes for a hot second, and hopefully I had him on the ropes as well. What I would like to do now is a quick tag, WWF tag. So, any of the brothers right now, please just put up your hand and let me know who wants to be tagged in. 3, 2, 1. Gaps! We've got the medicine man. We could do 2. It's only that I have to set up another mic and get another seat for you. No, I'll set up another mic and seat and get you guys both in. So if you guys are enjoying the show, we've got Prima up in here. Okay, Amaral up in here as well. Beautiful. Okay, cool. Gabs, come into the seat, and then we're going to get you on. I'm going to get another mic. Anything?
Don't settle for less. Here's what others are doing to fix missing and broken teeth. The company everyone has been raving about.
And this is what we're going to do. We have, after this, we have another brother, we can get another brother, Hamza, up in here as well. And we've got another brother, Abdullah, up in here as well. So it's going to be so sick. I can't wait.
Okay, so we're going to stop here. When we come back, because I'm going to do another part to this, right? So the first part, I guess, was just the introduction between the host and then, of course, Vocab. So we have another brother from the UK up in here. I'm not too sure what his background is, what is it exactly he wants to debate, but tune in again for part 2 of this, right? And we will dive in and see what happens with this Vocab alone versus this brother, right? But make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to share. Turn that notification bell on so that way you can be, notified when new videos drop, classes drop, things like that as well. Check us out on all platforms. We're on X, right? We're on IG. right? Of course, we're on YouTube. Make sure to hit that main Masada page and make sure you hit that Masada DFW page, all right? But with that, I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to the Most High God, Yahweh. We do all things to the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Shalom, family.
I've been known to handle business, this shit different. Hit the slab at any minute. Hope my people get this message. Around the way, they need a blessing. So I load up with my niggas, we stay rolling. Highways and hedges.